Empire.
Hey babies, hey babies, hey babies, hey babies. Hi everyone, hi everyone, hi everyone. Well, it's over. They made a pick. And it was dealer's choice, guys. It was dealer's choice the whole time. Anything but quarterback. It couldn't have gone any way. I think many people thought they have to go defense, right? Edge rusher, corner. They have not fixed, but they had bolstered the offense in free agency mainly through trades. But they had to do that, right? And they don't. And they start to load up on the side of the ball where they made the trades. And now Josh Conerly Jr. is the pick. And all I can think about was, I think it was the Combine where Dan Quinn did a media availability, and he talked about the Laramie Tunsil trade. And it stands out so much to me when they said, what's going to happen with Brandon Coleman? And he goes, he's going to right tackle for now.
Right.
For now is what he said. And I remember just reading into that going, yeah, like he could be the right tackle. He could end up being a guard, but they kind of don't have, if Wiley's not their starting right tackle, they kind of don't have a right tackle. And Tunsil's such a huge upgrade. Obviously, they got to put him somewhere and he's a starter. Well, it was like Quinn going, I don't want to tell you anything definitive because the truth is we are considering tackle, and here we are today.
No, exactly right. Not only that, they draft a left tackle to go to the right side as well. So the old position flex is really kicking in here as well. And I'll tell you what, like that starting five of when they're healthy, that's about as good as an offensive line that's been here in a long, long, long time. So once
Yes.
Cosme is back and hopefully he is healthy, I kind of thought it took a step back and said, man, that's a badass starting five once they are all ready to go.
Yeah. I mean, so for me, like, let me talk about Conerly first. Of the 8 million things that we went through for the last couple of months, and then yesterday where we went through position groups, and I'm like, really the wind is blowing corner here. I think that feels like a distinct possibility. But like, as we went through it, I'm like, listen, if Tyler Booker is there, and he went way early, like if he's there, then, I think that's a no-brainer for them. He's a plug-in starter left guard, and, you just go from there, and Coleman's your right tackle, and you move on. If he's not there, he isn't. This was the name that like popped up to me. Extremely athletic player. They've already got their left tackle. They're going to move him, plug him in, hopefully at right tackle. They've got a terrific solution behind him in Wiley if they need to slow roll it a little bit, or if there's an injury along the way, they've got a great swing tackle in him. Wiley can play guard if he has to. And Brandon Coleman, to me, kind of like has fell into the Cosme category, where if you told me he's still the right tackle, I would believe that. And if you told me, he's really going to be better served as a guard, I would believe that too. And so if he ends up, I know Adam Peters kind of hinted there will be competition over there, but there is a part of me that goes, I'm waiting for the moment that they say he's competing directly at either left guard or is going to start at right guard until Cosme comes back. That's what I think will end up happening, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, no, exactly right. Like it's funny how much he's going to be like Cosme, I guess, in terms of production, because Cosme was drafted to be a tackle, where Coleman, I think, was just slotted in wherever he was needed last year, wherever he could fit in. But where that's going to come in too is like what I like about it and I love about it is all of these guys now all of a sudden you can just have them play different positions too. Like I'm all about that life where you can flex them in and out here. And with Coleman, I mean, it does sound like he's going to be a guard kind of regardless at this point, right? So whether it's left or right, at least you can lock him into his position, because we know how that goes too, where that was the only thing where Sam Cosme a couple years ago, where he kind of lost it with Ron, was like, put me one place. And that seems to be what they're doing with Coleman, at least heading in.
Yes. So, I do feel like defined roles matter, and I think they matter to this group. And I think that's part of, the chemistry building is you want to know where you stand. You want to know where they're going to put you. If it is a flexible situation, like a rookie like Luke McCaffrey, who was moved into a lot of different positions, but they told him, we're going to put you at all these different things. Ben Sinnott, same thing. We don't have one defined role. We're thinking about all these different things. We're going to do this with you. I remember a couple years ago when Cosme played both guard and tackle in the same game at times. And he was moving around in these positions. And I remember after the season was over, and he didn't want to say it because you never want to say it. But it was like so obvious that that's just not an ideal situation. Understatement of the year. That's just not an ideal situation. And I remember talking to him the next spring, and he said he met with Ron Rivera and said, I just want to know where I'm going to be. He goes, I'm okay with you putting me at either place. I just want to know where I'm going to be because I want to excel at that. And he became a Pro Bowl caliber guard when they just put him there and said, this is where you ought to be. And amateurs like me look and go, I've always thought he'd be better as a guard anyway. He just has the skill set that looks like he'd be better as a guard. And fortunately, Ron did that because it's one of the good things he did. We are the recipient of, he is now clearly, hopefully he'll get healthy soon. I don't know how long he's going to be out. That's another question. But he's going to be our starting right guard for a long time. They've signed him that way. We have our center of the here and at least the next couple of years. I'm hoping we have our right tackle now for at least a 4 or 5 year run where he's a first round pick. And the hope is that he's going to live up to that. If Tunsil is anything like he's been over the last decade of his career, we have an all-pro left tackle. Coleman screams going in at left guard to me. And I don't know. And so a good little point of this, which is, are they going to tell him what his role is or are they not? And in this case, because Cosme is up in the air and clearly isn't going to be practicing in the offseason for sure, it will be interesting to see during OTAs when they open him up, where's he line up? And they may tell him, we need you at right guard until we get to Cosme coming back, and then we may move you to left guard, or you may compete with Allegretti for that spot, but that's the goal. This then allows someone like Nate Herbig, who they brought in, to be a primary backup or competition in camp. We'll see. Allegretti, if he ends up being a primary backup or spot starter, they're just in that group in such an incredibly different position than they were a year ago. They have masterfully turn this thing around. Now, part of that is Conerly has to be good. He's your first round pick in the expectation. He's a starter, and that's open question. And then Coleman has to end up being obviously a starting guard for them to validate him doing that. But the makings of it being not a weakness of the team or not a we'll see of the team, a strength of the team is clearly right in front of them right now.
No, I couldn't agree more. Just on the whole entire unit. This is one too. This was sneakily done as well. Kind of, over, not sneakily, but the Tunsil trade was big. But you kind of think about the units that were in shambles, and they did it slowly but surely, and then hit 2 home runs by trading for Tunsil and then drafting Conerly last night. All of a sudden, I'm not going to go out on a limb and call it a strength yet. We haven't seen them take a single snap. I don't know if he's good or not. We haven't seen it with Cosme being healthy, but all of a sudden you're cooking with gas along the offensive line. Whereas last year they were one of those units where, remember, I said it to you, man, if one guy goes down, things could get bad. And what happened? Cosme went down in the NFC champion, before the NFC championship game. And they were just, the equivalent of being boat raced on the defensive line. And that's not one person's fault, but it's kind of the same thing with this roster. Certain units were a house of cards. You take away one and all of a sudden it's all going to fall. Yeah. And so as a unit, I love them now. And we've gone this far without even saying they are going to protect their number one asset in the franchise. Jaden Daniels officially has protection all up and down the offensive line. There's that has to satisfy everybody that they have prioritized protecting number 5. And hopefully, getting a better run game protects him in a different way. But Daniels has nothing to worry about at this point, especially investing in his health as well.
One of the things that happened early a year ago that I think was one of the biggest surprises of the season was how well they ran the ball. And outside of Daniels doing what he was doing, but how well they were schemed, organized, ran the ball. That's a lot on Cliff. That's a lot on Bobby Johnson, the offensive line coach. But when you looked at the personnel, even though you're like, okay, Biotish is definitively an upgrade at center. Cosme is where he's supposed to be. everyone had questions about Wiley. They were like, is he really coming? Are they really bringing him back? And I remember thinking, like, I think we need a redo with him. He's a professional football player. I think that scheme was bad for him. Let's be open-minded about him. And let's see, because he's a pro. Let's see. They bring in Allegretti, but they bring him in at backup guard money. They didn't bring him in at high-level money. And they put him out there. And then they go, we're going to take this third-round pick and make him our starting left tackle. If you just looked at that on its face, you would go, I don't know. Like, let's see how this goes. A big story of the early part of the season was how dominant they were. And it wasn't just Jaden. It was they were rushing for over 200 yards regularly. They were extremely well schemed. I started to get concerned at the amount of plays they were running and what attrition would do to them because they were playing so up-tempo. And then, listen, you have to regress back to the mean to a point. Like, that is a rookie left tackle. This is a guard who's not making top-tier money. Biotish was playing through everything, but he was hurt. Cosby was playing through everything, but he was hurt. Wiley, no one's calling him a Pro Bowler, right? And so all of a sudden that started to deteriorate once the injuries started to happen. But the one knock on them early was they got a lot of false starts in primary areas of the field. And this was kind of the one knock about them early in the season. And so I think this is going to be a point of emphasis with this group because they are starting over again. Conerly, I would think, is going to project to start. We'll see. Tunsil, who gets a ton of false starts, okay, is your new left tackle. We don't know who the left guard is. The right guard situation is going to be up in the air until Cosby comes back, whenever that is. The only one who is going to be in the spot that they were in a year ago when they start over is Biotish. So I like what you're saying. I think the end result is going to be a lot different than what the early result is. That said, Cliff already has a track record of making a group that is can't possibly have any chemistry, doesn't really know each other, and in some cases is not overly talent laden, extremely effective. So the early part of the season is going to be extremely interesting to watch if it plays out the way we think with the people that we think are going to start. Obviously, Tunsil's the left tackle. Obviously, Biotish is the center. I think Conerly will be the right tackle, and we'll see what happens with Cosby in the other guard position.
No, exactly right. And I mean, look, to Cliff, it is his scheme, but at the same time, too, it's Jaden as well, right? Like, we saw Jaden run around in ways that we've never seen guys kind of run around and buy time or take off on 4th and 11s and convert those, right? So I think that's the other thing that happens here too, is you have such a good quarterback back there. He gets to mask some of that as well. Like, it's not always the offensive line's, whole entire duty to run the entire offense, right? So they have such a good quarterback as well. He's going to help them get through some of those growing pains. And by the way, like, take a step back. I'm saying, yes, the second-year quarterback is going to help the offensive line get through some growing pains. Like, that's a ridiculous thing to say, but he was that good last year that's going to help them a little bit as well. I'll say this too. Cliff is very good at being situationally aware, not just like in the microcosm of the game, but knowing what he has that's a strength and a weakness too. So he's going to call what he's going to call to help these guys out as well. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to lean into the strengths and weaknesses.
The other part of this is this, and like, I thought we were a year away from making this decision, but it started to lean this way into free agency. And I think, you have to make a choice at some point. Where are you going to load up? And this is another sign of they kind of directionally decided our opportunities to improve our roster are on that side of the ball. And therefore, let's take advantage of those opportunities now. And let's try to build up one side to be better than most everybody else. And I think it is somewhat of, like, they'll probably just tell you, hey, like everybody is saying in this very weird draft, we had him ranked way higher. Others will say it's a reach on certain people. They'll say, we don't care what you think. And they're going to tell you this was best player on the board for us. So why wouldn't we take him? It doesn't really matter what position. And if you are open to the idea of we could have taken anything but quarterback, that makes a lot of sense. But when you are picking in a position where you think the window's open for you to win, I've been talking about this, you're going to get somebody you think can help you immediately, which is why I never thought they were taking a linebacker, which is why I felt it was unlikely it would be a safety unless it was like the highest end one because they'd already kind of addressed it, which is why, even though I was leaning because the wind was blowing corner, I think they can get through with the guys they have. If they think they're picking Quinyon Mitchell, they'll pick Quinyon Mitchell. But if they don't think they're picking him, then I'm not sure that's the direction they're going to go. This is why all along I'm like, if they could get this guy Booker, it's a no-brainer. He's a spot starter. If they could get Travion Henderson, which they still could, obviously, for now. We'll see how far into the second round he actually falls. He could be a very early pick, but we'll see, right? Then it was like, he's a spot starter. Like, he's an immediate impact spot starter. So is this guy. And that's why this makes sense to me. I felt all along just how they're talking, how they're acting, what their mindset is, and all of the needs that they had. The pick at this spot was going to be someone who's going to start, period. And so that's why I'm not surprised at all here either. They went with somebody at a position they felt was a need and can improve them and makes them better now, not next year, year after that, now.
Not only spot starter, but somebody that's going to make an impact starting too. Like, this is where my argument, that's what my argument was with edge rusher. They might have found a starter that was an edge rusher, but I don't think it would have had the impact they wanted. I think it would have been someone that would have been a solid starter. We have no idea what the trajectory would have been, but you and I know this, like, the top picks of the edge rushers are totally different than the end of the first round in terms of what they can do.
Themselves the other day when Peters goes, well, if Abdul Carter's at 27, I'll take him.
Yeah, like literally, yeah, like
saying nobody else is him.
That's right. No, exactly right. And so that's what I'm getting at. And that's where I have landed this whole time. And to me, it's not even like a Commanders thing. It's an NFL thing. What is more immediate? What is more impactful? It is your offense. And so they had already gone all in the offseason with getting Debo and trading for Tunsil. I was not going to be surprised, especially yesterday where it kind of started to settle out that, hey, could it have been corner? Sure. But at the same time, I also kind of looked at this and I realized this yesterday afternoon. There weren't a lot of offensive tackles. So I kind of was thinking if one of them falls, they're going to take them because every position group we talked about, there's still a possibility they can grab one with one of their later picks. With offensive linemen, the good ones, there actually aren't a lot out there. They're already saying, too, coming up in the second round, that if you don't have one, you're kind of already SOL. So this was also a pick that fit their value, too, which I think was really important.
100%. And so I like it. And I mean, I was going to like just about anything. I actually think if they went linebacker, because there was a lot of smoke on this Carson Schlesinger, who also wasn't picked in the first round. Maybe if they like him, he could be there. Who knows? Like, I think I just would have looked at that and been like, that doesn't feel pitch perfect to me because you're not benching Bobby Wagner. So, I don't love to go criticize him, but I would have been like, that one doesn't really make a tremendous amount of sense. Of all the ways you could have gone, that's the one that doesn't make any sense. Had they gone tight end, I think I also would have said that. But if Tyler Warren was there, I think it would have been impossible not to go, yeah, but he's better. You've got to take that guy. But it didn't, considering what they did, it didn't make sense. This is why initially corner for me was not the need position. They addressed it. The hope is Lattimore is going to be Lattimore. That is a risk, but that's the hope. And they've made their bed with that. He's their number one corner if he's the guy he was a couple of years ago and is healthy. Samuel's a hit. He's either going to be on the inside or the outside, but he's a starter and he's a hit. He's a stud. And by the end of the year, you were sitting there going, if that guy played that way the whole year, he'd be the defensive rookie of the year the way he was going. Once they signed Jonathan Jones, I went, they don't feel like they need another one. Could it make them better? Yes. Are they going to take one in this draft? I do think so. I don't know if it's a second round pick or beyond, but I think that is going to be a position that they take along the way here. But that's why I was always like, I see the wind is blowing this way, and I'm going to be willing to talk about the wind is blowing this way because so many people are earmarking corners for them, and I can't ignore that. Like if Schefter, Keim, Daniel Jeremiah, everybody's saying that's who's going to end up coming here. I can't ignore that because they know more, or at least they have a better guess than I do in those spots. But I never felt like that was the priority. And I always thought they're going to take someone who's going to start immediately, period, no question. That could be this guard. That could be a running back. That could be an edge if they love them, and that could be a tackle. But it became so abundantly clear that the edge outside of Carter are all a guessing game. And yeah, you got to pick the guy you like. I even think they're basically saying, we didn't know whether this person would be impact immediately, even if we love them. But if we take one of these other guys, they are. And that's what Conerly represents. And it makes sense to me.
Yeah, and also too, like there was a little bit of that smoke where Peters did say, "Oh, we value competition, or we want some competition." And I'm like, I don't know, first round pick. I'm not looking for a guy to compete. I'm looking for a guy to start and make an impact right away. And like, yes, maybe he bumped someone down on the depth chart, but why would you want competition somewhere where you're kind of set right now? Maybe not perfectly, but you are pretty much set like cornerback. Like, yes, you could take somebody, be fine, but not with your first round pick.
And when they say competition at the tackle position, when they say that we want competition there, I'm sitting there going, you didn't draft this guy to be the backup. You drafted him to be the starter. He's not the left tackle. He's clearly the right tackle. So I think it will shake out very soon. Coleman will be a full-time guard and maybe have to be a swing tackle for them in case of emergency. You know, like if for some reason both of them get hurt one week, it would be Wiley Coleman because it would just have to be that way. But that's not the plan going into any given season. So I fully expect that they're going to, whether they say it publicly or you just see it once practice begins, he's going to be practicing at guard. He'll be practicing at both because they may need him, you know, in an emergency. But the object here is for Conerly to play. And then he's probably the future left guard. And if you tell me that Allegretti and Herbig and Wiley are your primary backups, think what the primary backups were a year ago. The depth of the offensive line is on 180 from what it was a year ago.
No, it's a totally different unit. I mean, and it's a unit that you can rely on now. And like this always happens. No one's top 5 linemen make it through the entire year. I mean, if they do, it's very, very rare. Go ask the Eagles about that, right? Like even the Eagles had to rely on 7 different linemen to get them through the season. This is something you absolutely have to have. And I think, you know what? I think there's a little bit of this, like I mentioned, I think there's a little bit of kind of, they saw what happened in the NFC Championship game that you and I know because we watched the game close and people that are in DC watched the game close, that score wasn't indicative of really how close that game was. Mistakes bit them in the ass, but at the same time, it was the offensive line got hurt. They couldn't, contain Carter. I think this is Adam Peters going, we're not letting that happen again because we were still very, very close to making that a game with a offensive line that was piecemealed together after making all those mistakes.
Let's see what comes next. All right. Today, second round, and then we'll get to day 3. They have 4 picks currently. I don't put anything past Peters to make some moves and try to, maybe acquire some later round picks now. Shuffling around in the second round, third round will get you assets, but often not like moving a first round pick. So can they acquire a second late round pick if they really want it? I still think that's open and possible, and he's totally open to all of that. But what comes next from a player position group? I think the 3 that still stand out, at least early here, because I think you want your second round pick to be in the position, if this draft is what they say it is, which is everything really from 10 to the 4th round is pick your flavor and the talent level is kind of all in the same bucket. Well, then maybe we're talking about another potential starter as well. And if that's the case here early in the second round, then I'm still looking at running back. Travion Henderson is not off the board. Will he get to their position? Hard to believe. I thought he was going to be a first-round pick, but he is available. Let's see. I doubt it gets to him, but if he is, I think that's a no-brainer that you take him there, even though I just highly doubt he would get that far. Edge is a very deep position, so this is something that could be addressed in the second round. And then secondarily, when you're not a first-round pick, the pressure is just off. The public pressure is just off immediately. So all of those other edge rushers that maybe in another given year would be a second round pick, well, this one is, and they're not talking about him like he's got to come in here and be Nick Bosa, right? And then there's still corner, which I believe all 3 of these positions are going to be addressed one way or another in the draft. I know that they like a couple of corners that they've projected later in the draft. I am watching over the weekend for this Virginia Tech running back who I know that they've had some meetings with, that they see some explosive juice in. I know they're looking for explosive players. I don't know that he's a second round pick, but he'd be a later round pick. I think if Henderson is available to them in the second round, it's the no-brainer of no-brainers. Assuming that he isn't, then my gut says the next pick is probably a corner or an edge.
No, I mean, that sounds about right. These are now the three positions that I think we talked about most before kind of this week. I don't really care what order you get it done in. Add one of each at each position, and I'm completely at peace with it. I'm with you on Henderson. If he's there, I feel like that's a hit if he's still there with their next pick. But honestly, like, this is kind of like, I was having this conversation with someone yesterday where this is with this group, it's almost a little bit boring. I just kind of trust what they do. So no matter what order they get this done in, as long as they have one from each position, I'm okay with it. And it does sound like, there were some edge rushers that were on the board there at 29 that a lot of people liked. But, if there's a bunch of them there, if there were three there, it does tell you about what the depth is for that position too. So I'm okay with a later round pick.
All right, fully recap them, obviously, on Monday. John Keim is going to join me. Callow is going to go run a marathon this weekend, and therefore, I'm not making him get up to do this show on Monday. You're going to need a day off. So I'll have Keim on Monday, and we'll do a full recap of the Commanders draft when we get to that. All right, let's make sense of the rest of the first round next. Bram wants to show ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. Baseball season is in full swing, and we've just started the NBA and NHL playoffs, which has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting while the games are being played. With the largest selection of odds on everything from the MLB, NHL, and the UFC, Bet Online remains the number one online source for all your sports wagering info. In between games, head over to the Bet Online Casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and a live casino. Bet Online. The game starts here.
Anywhere else, Tuesday is just, Tuesday. But if you're at KFC, Tuesday is $10 Tuesday, which means you can get 8 hot, juicy drums and thighs for just $10. Let me say that again. 8 pieces of hot, juicy, original recipe chicken, hand-breaded in 11 herbs and spices. All for just $10 every Tuesday, only at KFC. Guess Tuesday isn't just Tuesday anymore. It's finger-licking good. Prices and participation may vary. Tax, tips, and fees extra.
All right, welcome back. All right, first big move was at number 2. So Cam Ward, obviously the Titans said earlier in the week, we're going to keep the number 1 pick. Everybody knew who it was for. Let's see what happens with Will Levis now. That's an interesting one. I think he's got to be semi-valuable in some way. Like, you could get a pick for him, I think.
Sure, late rounder.
I think you could get a mid-round pick for him, actually. I'm watching a team like Pittsburgh. Do they have any interest in him at all? Like, because if they do, you probably get him, and they have literally Mason Rudolph right now. They have to do something. They literally have to do something. Anyway,
I'm just imagining Will Levis make his not top 10 play and Tomlin staring at him.
The eyeball just popping out of his head. Yeah.
No kidding. How I feel about Will Levis. Yeah. He's my favorite He's my favorite comedic quarterback in the league. That dude, I'm sorry. I've never been so out on a quarterback than Will Levis.
And nobody does the eyeballs meme like Mike Tomlin. Not purposefully. The eyeballs get big, when he sees something he doesn't like. Yeah.
I'm imagining Will Levis pick 6 to a Ravens defensive tackle. And Tomlin is just like, what the F are you doing, man?
Right. Or, I don't know, how about New Orleans? Derek Carr is injured. They haven't said how injured, how much time he's going to miss. They clearly need a quarterback in the future anyway. I don't know. If you can get him, I don't think there's other quarterbacks that are worth going crazy for here. You get him for a late round pick. I don't know. That kind of makes sense to me too. Maybe they'll jump in and do something like that. That's a possibility.
You get someone that maybe wants to make him compete too. I don't know, just like the Jets. Do they make a pass for him? Do the 49ers think they could run him through the car wash? Right? I think that'd be an interesting one too.
I think the Jets will not do anything to threaten Justin Fields, actually.
That's fair. No, and
I don't think they will. They may bring in a quarterback, but it'll be a non-threatening one. That's what I think will happen.
But those are the ones that I think of too, of hey, we're just going to bring you in. You don't have to be the starter. We want to bring you along here. And, funny enough, do the Tannehill move, just become an NFL pro. And I could see a couple of different teams, kicking the tires on him. As you know, with me though, I don't think he's an NFL starter. So
yeah. All right. So the Browns actually, I think, semi-surprise here. You often don't trade out of the second overall pick. They clearly weren't going to take a quarterback. That is what they need for the future. And I will give them credit here. I think this is a wise thing to do. I like Travis Hunter. I think he's going to be a very good player. You know, he might be a historic player. If the Jaguars are going to let him play both ways, that's an extraordinary rarity. I doubt he'll do it, you know, with any kind of frequency that he would do that. The NFL doesn't seem to be built for that. And I don't think his body would last trying to do something like that. But it will be interesting to see what they do with him. I actually think for Hunter, this is a better place to go. They have an established quarterback. We can parse out what we think about Trevor Lawrence, but it's not Cleveland without one. And Cleveland trades down a few spots and takes exactly what you should take in a situation, you know, like this, where you're not punting on the year, but your quarterback situation leaves you kind of in limbo. Just go take a stud defensive player, like just on the line that you know is going to be there for 5 years, you know, like that, like he may not be the best, but he's going to be really good. I'm going to give Cleveland some credit here. They make a lot of mistakes. I'm for them. I think this is a good trade for both of these teams. Hunter gives the Jaguars some buzz for sure. He could be a huge boost on offense. He could be a huge boost on defense. He's a really good player. He's going to help them. They're going to get buzz of having a star on their team. He's not the right fit for Cleveland based on where they are right now. Cleveland trades out, gets assets, and gets a guy that can go a little under the radar on what is probably a figure it out year until they get through Deshaun. And so, like, I give the Browns a lot of credit. I actually think they made a really good move here.
They also did my number one thing that I thought a lot of these teams, if they didn't love somebody in that top 5, add a pick for next year. And they get the Jags first round pick next year, which
yes, I
don't know what that's going to be, but like at best, that's like
for a receiver who might not even be as good as Malik Neighbors.
That's right. And so like I look at that and just go, I'm glad you added the first round pick, because let's look at what the Jags ceiling is. Like, what is the Jags ceiling next year? Maybe make the playoffs. So we're taking like 15th, 16th overall there. Well, if the Browns still don't have their quarterback and they're bad again this year and they somehow don't get number 1 overall, they have the ammo to move up and get their quarterback if they don't, have the first overall pick or close to it next year too. I love this move for the Browns. And for the Jags, I'm like a little more lukewarm on Hunter. I never liked the player that, like, he's not like an amazing wide receiver or an amazing corner. He does both. I understand it. But that's one where I'm always like, I'd rather just have you do one. And then he was chirping about he wants to go both ways. That's fine. But will he be worth this price in the end? I think that's the biggest question. I'm not doubting that he can do it, but I think that's a huge question of what they gave up to get him.
I mean, listen, he can prove me wrong. My opinion, I think he's a special player. He's so good on both sides of the ball. That's not realistic in the NFL, in my opinion. It's just not. So they're going to end up picking a side where that's where he's profiled. And I'm sure to appease him and their fans, they'll abuse him the other way. And we'll see which way that actually goes. Considering that their new head coach is a really good, Liam Cohen, is a really good offensive coordinator. I'm assuming they see him as a receiver that might play a little bit of corner, but I guess we'll just have to see when they talk about what they're going to do with him. But, and I hate doing this, but like, I don't think he's Malik Neighbors.
Right. No, I agree.
I'm not sure coming in that I would have said, and I'm not sure Marvin Harrison's turned out to be Marvin Harrison, but last year that was a no-brainer pick. Like, he is really good, like really, really, really high-end good. And maybe he'll become that in Arizona. I don't think his rookie season showed that. Neighbors is a freak. When I see Hunter, I see a really great football player. I don't see a freak. And maybe he can prove me wrong about that.
No, I 100% agree. That's where I've kind of landed with Hunter. Like, and here's the thing I will say with Hunter last night too. You want to talk about a guy that like turned himself into a star in terms of like, if you hadn't seen his personality, that was fun to watch last night. Like, I will say he won the draft with his personality a little bit. And even I was going, okay, if you're a Jags fan, how do you not love this guy with how he was, talking, how he was dancing up on the stage? I know Kay Adams did a little like mini interview with him. I don't know if you saw this. She asked him like, hey, they didn't interview you after the combine. Did you know about this? And he said, I had a gut feeling. I was looking at houses on Jacksonville last night just because I had a feeling this was going to happen. So I will say this, personality-wise, I think you're right. They have a star. They can market him. I think Lawrence has been okay, but he hasn't really marketed himself as a star down there. I will say this. The Jags got their star power. I just don't know if he's going to be that good on the field.
Let's see. Number 3, the Giants just take the best player available here, even though it's like the one position they do not need to take best player available. So I understand why they wanted to trade out so bad, because once it became abundantly clear what 1 and 2 was, they're sitting there going, oh my God, any other given year, like we'd be ecstatic to take this guy. But now we're going to piss off Kayvon Thibodeau in 3, 2, 1. Here we go. They've already paid Brian Burns. Brian Burns has done it at an extremely high level for a long time. He ain't going nowhere. Thibodeau, who's coming up at the end of a rookie contract and needs to get paid and has not consistently done it on the level of someone like Burns, is about to get replaced by Abdul Carter. So, the Giants have put themselves in a pickle. And at the same time, how could they not take him? So I think they were in a really funny spot last night.
I mean, I will say this, the Giants, they've drafted a quarterback, but they're not paying a quarterback anymore. I always joke about this. Sometimes the past repeats itself. How did the Giants win those Super Bowls? It was having too many pass rushers, right? That's how they negated and beat the Patriots in their 2 Super Bowls. Is there going to be an argument here to actually sign Thibodeau after this? I mean, I doubt it's going to happen, but crazier things have happened. And I don't know, maybe that defense swarms a little bit more and makes some guys happy. I will say this, though. I'm never mad at a team taking the best player available. You draft the best guys. You figure out how to put them on the field. That's the next thing you do. Good for them. They got the best defensive player in the draft, in my opinion, and they just sat there and got him that way.
Yes. So they'll figure it out. Then they did move back in later in the first round, and they took Jackson Dart. I love my scouting. I said, he's the one. I'm like Cam Ward, I go, at the beginning of this whole process, I don't think there's any quarterbacks that are honestly, landscape changing, like Caleb was, like Jaden is, like Drake May could be, like what it looks like Penix could be, what it looks like Nix could be. I just didn't see it in the whole class, but I'm like, the 2, if I were to take a shot on them and say, okay, these guys, I think have a chance to really be good at the next level, Cam Ward and Jackson Dart. And so I'm not surprised, but where you go matters. And here's the mismatched part of this. So Daboll likes mobile quarterbacks. He is not. So while I agree, I believe that they got the second best quarterback and they clearly need a quarterback of the future, but they don't need a quarterback of the now because they got Russ and Jameis on the team. So he's not playing this year. That's not happening. He's not playing this year. They're going to develop him for the future, but he's not the style of quarterback that Daboll has worked with in the past. So he's going to be selling ownership. Don't worry about this year. It's a bridge year to Jackson Dart playing, and the offense we're running right now with Russ or Jameis might kind of not be the one with Jackson Dart down the road. So I think they're twisting themselves in knots, even though they took this player. And I bet you, I wonder what he's thinking about his future, because he knows they go 5-12 or something like that. There's probably changes coming. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, I do think this is a little bit, and we had talked about this. This is a little bit of the baked in. We're going to get one more year out of here because no matter what happens,
you got to see it through with him.
You do. And I'm with you, though. Stylistically, I don't really understand it. And I almost wondered, was this one also, though, an ownership thing, too? There was some chatter about how he does have a relationship with Eli Manning because they both went to Ole Miss.
Miss.
I was like, oh God,
probably went to the Manning camp, probably did all that.
Absolutely. And so I was kind of like, ooh, I don't know. If it was Daboll and Shane, fine. But to me, that one, it seemed like there was a little bit of shade of ownership of hey, we had the old Ole Miss quarterback before and we won 2 Super Bowls with that guy. Why not get the next one? I wouldn't have traded up for him, but hey, they needed a quarterback. And I'm with you. At least they have Russ and Jameis, and they won't make it a storyline, honestly, for the first 7-8 weeks of the season, most likely.
Russ is starting this year unless he goes sideways with Daboll. That's the reality. He is. Let's see. 4 was Will Campbell, best offensive lineman on the board. That makes sense. Protect Drake May. I already talked about Mason Graham. Ash Giugetti, I said this yesterday. I go, I don't believe that the Jaguars are taking him. I believe they're ripe for a move, and they did. I didn't know go up. I thought they would go down. So that was their surprise. Genti to the Raiders made a tremendous amount of sense. He's going to be terrific. He's just a great player. Let's see. Offensive tackle goes to the Jets. That makes sense. The best wide receiver on the board goes to the Panthers. That's an interesting choice. They spent a first-round pick last year on a wide receiver, and this is going to be the one where people are going to call this a reach. They're going to say that about him, albeit, though, I think everyone agrees he was the best on the board coming out. And again, this was choose your own adventure. Most people wouldn't have put him at 8, but they're going to say he was our best player, and we don't care what you think about that.
For the Panthers too, I think it's gonna be like the final year for Bryce Young too. I think you and I liked him in the second half last year. I think that defense also was actually like sneaky good. They were holding teams to a couple of points. Like they almost beat the Chiefs. I think this is their final. Here's one more weapon. If you don't get it done now, we're gonna move on.
Yeah, I mean Chuba Hubbard is good enough as a starting running back for them. They paid a lot of money for their offensive line. Young really came around in the second half of the season. Leggett is going to be in his second year, so I guess it makes sense. Sure, go get the best receiver on the board. That makes sense to me. Or maybe not. Maybe second best if you count Travis Hunter. I don't know how you describe him.
Yeah.
Offensive tackles the way the Saints went. Tight end, but not the one from Penn State. Colston Loveland goes to the Bears at 10. I'd like to see what Chicago thinks about that. I'm sure they're happy with the pick, but probably asking some questions. Edge to the 49ers. Booker, the guy I love, the inside offensive lineman. Zach Martin is retiring. Their offensive line in Dallas really went sideways last year. That actually makes sense to me. I know it's not a flashy pick, but it makes sense to me that they went and did that. I was hoping he'd get to 29. Obviously came nowhere near it. Kenneth Grant, Michigan defensive tackle to the Dolphins. That makes sense. Tyler Warren to the Colts. That's a tough spot because of the quarterback situation there. We'll have to see how that he fits. I think the Falcons did well here with Jalen Walker at 15. That's a really good spot to get him. I think the Cardinals potentially did well with Walter Nolan. If you watch some tape on him, you see the freakish, cartoonish plays that he makes. So there's not a lot of consistency, but if he's going to do that, then that's going to be a hit for them. So we'll see. Shamar Stewart is a total. We talked a lot about him. 17 to the Bengals. Trey Hendrickson's contract is up. Sam Hubbard retired. So they actually had to go get an edge rusher because they're not sure that Hendrickson's going to play. And so they don't have either one of them. So they were forced into that. That's the choice they made. Zabel's a very good guard. He goes to Seattle. Egbuka, very good receiver, goes to Tampa. That's interesting because they just took they like McMillan too, and they brought Godwin back. So that feels like a glut of receivers, but that's what they did. I guess it's signaling the end is near for Mike Evans. Jahdae Barron, who I talked about yesterday, if he got to 29, I think would have been a good pick for the Commanders. He goes to the Broncos at 20. Defensive tackle at 21 for the Steelers. That's where a lot of people projected up. Did not end up that way. He wasn't drafted in the first round. Omarion Hampton goes to the Chargers. That was kind of projected out of North Carolina. Matthew Golden, great receiver, Texas, goes to Green Bay. Donovan Jackson's a guard, goes to Minnesota. We talked about Jackson Dart. James Pierce, highly respected edge to the Falcons. So very high-end defensive players. They need it very badly to try to help them. And they have a lot of weapons on offense. Penix year too. I think it's the right move for them to go defense this year. Malachi Starks, who I liked a lot, goes to the Ravens. That'll be interesting. Him paired with Kyle Hamilton. That's going to be a very, very interesting pairing for them. And then the rest of it is what it is. Well, Hairston, who's the guy that Keim thought Washington was going to take, was taken literally a pick after Washington by Buffalo, the corner out of Kentucky. So Washington, according to Keim, thought they liked him a lot. It sounds like there was a tough decision to be made for Washington with Hairston going right after him.
No, absolutely. And I would say too, though, that this organization was very happy with taking Conley, especially with the note with Cliff Kingsbury where he left it and said draft the Oregon tackle. It tells you the organization actually liked him too. I'm completely okay with this. I will say this one thing though from yesterday: the Falcons trading up to get that guy with all the character concerns. That was one where I was like, that's a weird one to me, but they do need defensive help, and they got 2 edge rushers to revamp their defensive line. I will say this: the Falcons really went for it on what is probably their biggest defense or biggest weakness on defense.
All right, a lot more on the draft on Monday when we recap the whole thing. I want to get into the Caps next. Bray watch the show. ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. Hey, welcome back. Tonight's the night that the Capitals can put the first-round series with the Canadiens in a chokehold. Nothing's been easy here, so I'm not even trying to pretend that it will be because They've had 2 1-goal wins, one in overtime, or well, I guess the other one was they won by 2, but they scored with 0.7 seconds left. But they were nail biters. They were both nail biters. They blew a third period lead, 2-goal lead in the game one in overtime. They nearly blew a lead in the third period the other night. And if Logan Thompson wasn't freaking amazing, they probably would have. So there's nothing easy about what's going on here. Now you're going on the road. This is a wild atmosphere. I mean, this is their team. So I'd be interested to see what this is. They kind of have to. I mean, I know anything can happen in hockey, but they kind of have to win this one. So what do you expect tonight?
I'll do the old. They got to win one of two. They got to win at least tonight or Sunday. And here I'm going to use the old hockey cliche. Bell Center, if you've never been, one of the best atmospheres, one of the best sports atmospheres I've ever been in. And I was just there for a regular season game. This is the old, you got to last the first 10 minutes. Like, that crowd is going to be on top of them. They're going to be loud. They're going to be boisterous. There's a lot of tradition in Montreal too. So the emotions are going to be high. I don't think I might have to be corrected here. I'm pretty sure they haven't made the playoffs since they were in the final in the bubble. And if this is the first playoff game since then, that crowd's going to be nuts. I might be wrong on that, but either way, this young team is going to be shot out of a cannon. You got to last the first 10 minutes without any major mistakes. You got to outlast them a little bit. And then that's when I think the Caps are going to counterpunch. After the first 10 minutes of the game, second period rolls around, Caps need to settle into their game, score 1 or 2, lock them down defensively. I have all the faith in the world it's going to be that they're going to do this again. It's going to be close, but I think the Caps have kind of fallen into their groove. Thompson was really good the other night. Also, the other thing is Alexi Protas did travel. They're not saying whether he's going to play or not, but he did travel. And I don't think you travel unless you're going to play at least 1 or 2 of these games. So if he steps into the lineup too, I really like the Caps' chances again tonight.
You know, I saw a couple sparks from Leonard too. I'm waiting for him to get his sea legs where, you know, and whether he scores a goal or not, whatever, just like makes a couple of plays.
Yep.
And we start to see the impact he could have. I'm hoping that we get to see that here over this weekend.
I think we saw it the other night too. I mean, he had the assist on Strome's game-winning goal, right? He's starting to get a little physical. I actually think this is the perfect opponent for Leonard to find his sea legs because he looks across and he's going, those guys are only 1 and 2 years older than I am. So, of course, he should be able to find his groove a little bit. I thought he actually really did settle in last game. Then the other guy to watch here, too, is like, and we've talked about him already, but we have to keep mentioning his name, is Anthony Beauvillier has just been so good through the first 2 games that he needs to keep playing that way. I'm getting playoff aura hero from him right now. And so if there's a hero I've got to pick for this run, it's him. So as long as he keeps playing well, I think they're in a really good spot.
All right. Can they make Capitals history and actually sweep somebody this weekend?
No.
They've never done this before.
I don't think they will.
I can't believe it's the case. They've never, as many times they've been in the playoffs, they've never done that before.
They've gotten a 3-game sweep when the first round used to be best of 5, but they've never gotten a 4-game best of 7 sweep in their history. Out of all the times they've been in the playoffs, yes, they've never done it. I wish I could say yes, but Montreal's push to the Caps has been good enough that I don't think they're going to be able to withstand whatever the last push is, whether they're up 3-0 and it's the sweeping game here, or it's 3-1 and it's back here. Like, I don't see it happening here. And that's why I said my gut said Caps in 5, which probably means Caps in 6. So I will stick to that at this point.
I'm going to go Caps in 5. I think they win it. I think they win at home, game 5. That's what I think ends up happening. All right. Good luck in your marathon this weekend.
Thank you.
All right. And I'll catch up with you on Tuesday. Ray Watch the show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital.